Hey, you're listening to the Intentional Documentary Podcast. So glad to have you. Around here, I'm gushing over the stories behind the pictures that we freaking love of our own lives. You know, the ones we hold as high value and iconic, because this is where photography meets real life. I'm your host, Marie Moss, and I believe that the best way to approach your photography is through your lens, your way. Through insightful conversations with photographers, I'll explore preserving life with your camera and using what lights you up to grow your brand. Let's get started. Hey there, I hope you're having a wonderful week so far. This episode's gonna be pretty fun. I think it'll be a bit tactical, but also inspirational. And I'm talking all about getting your phone photos off of your phone. And I'm gonna tell you how I keep my phone app at like 0 most of the time for the amount of pictures and videos and all of that inside, which feels pretty magical in a day where we're documenting everything all the time. And if you're anything like me, I'm sure that you despise getting that notification, you're almost out of storage. And then you go to make a picture and you can't because it's like your storage is full. So no more of that. We're going to solve that. And I'm going to share everything about how I make my phone photo books, the company that I use, and I've got about 12 different things that I put in my books that you may not have thought of, and I'm hoping that I inspire you there. Okay, so first things first, let's start off with my process and how I get my Photos app to 0. I initially recorded this message in a video for the Preservation Project members. I shared my photo books and all of that and found out real quick that what I thought was an insane amount of photos and pictures on my phone, like 7,000 to 9,000, is actually pretty small in comparison to some. It actually made me thankful for the first time ever for only 32 gigabytes of storage on my phone. I think that's what I have. And I heard from people that they've got tens of thousands of pictures, and even our own Ebony had mentioned that her phone storage would fill up and then she'd just upgrade to the next size up, and she just avoided doing anything with these. So all of that really inspired me to transfer that message in that group to a podcast, because I really do. I'm not tooting my own horn, but I really do maintain my phone app to 0. I clear them off of my phone to make room for new and do something with those pictures. The best part is once you get started in this habit, it's really easy to keep up with, I promise. So the first time that I did something was when I had a moment that I'm sure you're familiar with, when you get that annoying notification, your storage is almost full. And then before you know it, you're getting that other annoying notification when something amazing is happening in front of you and you go to make a picture or record the video and it tells you that you can't because you're out of storage. Ugh, I hate that. So that happened to me. My storage was full. I knew I had to do something. And so I ordered a photo book directly from my phone from Artifact Uprising sometime in 2016. So when I get that notification on my phone that my storage is almost full, that's my cue to do something about my Photos app. The last time I ordered a photo book, my phone only had about 4,000 something items in that app because I've been downloading more apps, buying more songs. So it's happening to me more frequently because of the size of storage that my phone has. That said, I don't want to give you that advice of, oh, just take care of this when you're getting that you're almost out of storage message, because if you have a phone that has a lot more storage capacity on it, that could be far and few between for you. So just gauging off of how often I shoot on my phone, my photo books tend to have about, give or take, 6 months worth of pictures inside of them. So I would say, like, the first time that you order one of these books, or if you have in the past, like, kind of look at that to measure how often perhaps you should put it on your calendar and just make the decision to take care of it. This will be the trickiest part of the whole process. I wish I had something more concrete to tell you, like a certain amount of time or whatever, but I can't because I don't know your phone storage. I don't know how often you are actually shooting with your phone, but I do know that one of my own weaknesses is that I will make like 20 pictures of something that I'm shooting, and I'm really terrible at going back and culling those down and taking out the ones that I don't like. I tend to do it maybe one round of culling because I'm looking for the best one to put on Instagram, but usually there's a tie between, 4 of them, and it's really hard for me to then just cull it, and so then I just don't. And so a lot of the numbers inside of my Photos app, they're not all the things that I want to keep, of course. So just to say that I'm not perfect, and if you ask me about iCloud storage, I have no clue how to even use it. I have no clue how to get to my iCloud storage. From pretty much the beginning of time with my iPhone, it's told me that my iCloud storage is full, and it's been full for life. Moving on, before you order a photo book of your phone pictures, I want you to set the intention. What's the purpose of this book? Where do you want this one to live? But think beyond this next one that you're making, and think in terms of 5, 10, 50 years from now. This is really important to see that, because I ordered an 8x8 book, and it kind of felt like a bulky phone book. And it was great, but it only had about 6 months worth of photos in it, which means if I'm ordering, say, 2 per year, they would add up so fast. And I don't want stacks and stacks of these books around. So I have found that I really like this 6x6 size. And I'll tell you companies and all of that in a little bit. Another thing to consider is, who are these books for? Because I think it's obvious we're ordering them for ourselves, but you can use these as gifts. You can, of course, just give them to grandparents or whoever. But one thing I wish that I would have done, this goes back to what I talked about in episode 4, What's a Legacy Box? I'll link to that in the show notes. I know my grandparents only had 1 set of photos. I think that's typical for most families, but my dad was one of 5. So that meant that there needed to be a lot of photo copies made, or they had to be divided. And I don't want my kids to have to deal with that. So moving forward, I think I'll order a book for myself and leave it like that. And then either order multiple copies or let them make their own photo books. Basically, do it with them so they can sit down, they can pick out what photos that they like, and I'll make it for them and stick it in their memory box. Once I order a photo book with all of my photos on my app, not all, but the ones I've selected, then I plug my phone into my computer, my iMac, and image capture pops up. And then I can transfer all of the phone photos and videos and screenshots. Everything that's in there is all selected. And then I pick a folder for it to go on. And there's a little checkbox that I think says delete or remove images from device after transfer or something like that. So that little box is checked. And then they all move into a folder on an external hard drive so that I still have them. And then my phone is back to 0. It's really that simple. To stay extra organized, I name the folder that I'm putting all of these photos into the same name as the book that I just ordered. So that way I can quickly and easily get to the photo that I'm looking for. So as I was saying in the beginning, I don't really do anything with my videos, and I also do a lot of screenshots. So all of this is kind of like the kitchen sink of everything. And I've always had this intention to go through it and to organize and pull out the screenshots. A lot of times the screenshots are inspiration for business, maybe for content, for how to structure a sales page or whatever. and they just sit in those folders forever. I mean, I've been doing this now since 2016. And at one point I did sit down and try to start organizing them, but then I got bored with it. It took a little too long. I mean, at that point there were 9,000 images in that folder. So all that to say, this is also just a testament to, I mean, we document so much that we're never going to look at again. So don't hold yourself, like, don't put too much pressure on yourself to do something with those beyond that, especially if it's just stuff that you don't care that much about. I do want to go in there and at least pull out all of the video files, but other than that, I don't really care that much. And so just knowing that I have them, they're there if I need them, but I'm not doing anything with them beyond making the photo book. That's good enough for me. So let's talk companies. You might be wondering, okay, where do I order these from? So I started off with Artifact Uprising. They have an app. Of course, it's free to download, and then you pay for the book. And it's really easy to use the app. I loved their books. They have a 5.5 by 5.5, I believe, size that I thought was perfect. I really liked their cover designs, and overall, I was really happy with those books. But they cap the amount of photos that you can put in there at 100. That was a problem for me. So when I found Chatbooks, initially I thought that Chatbooks was the company where you had to have a subscription, or it was just to print your social media account shares into a book. So you can actually make a chatbook that pulls, say, from your Instagram, and you can save, like, all of the captions would be written inside of the books, which is really cool. I think that's best for people who are using their captions like a journal. I don't really use it in that way, and I don't share everything on social media, so I just do it through my Photos app directly. But at first, I didn't know that you could do that, so I was really pleased to see that you can just make a custom photo book from your Photos app, and you don't have to have a subscription. However, if you're shooting a lot, I think the subscription offer that they have is really cool. They have a video on their site that references that it's like a magazine subscription for your life. I mean, how cool is that? You don't even have to do anything. It says that I don't remember where it pulls from, if it's your Photos app or Instagram or what, but basically when you have 60 photos, it automatically creates a book and sends it to you. I mean, how awesome. But I'm kind of a control freak in that sense and really love my process so far that my phone storage is almost full. I order a custom photo book. So I just keep it that simple. So another thing that I do know about Chatbooks that I read, I don't know how to do it because I didn't look into it and haven't used this feature, but I just caught on their site that you can actually collaborate on books, which I wish I would have known way back when, because my husband has photos on his phone that I would have loved to have put into just one book as opposed to having separate books. You know what I mean? So just another piece of food for thought. So in terms of offerings and sizes, with Chatbooks, they offer an 8x8 book and a 6x6 book. I really like the 6x6. It is the same thickness as the 8x8 book, but it's just a little bit smaller. I don't think that I need the 8x8 for this type of photography. And the 6x6, I think almost all of the pictures, because I tend to shoot in square to begin with, went to the edges, whereas in the 8x8 book, there was a lot more white space around in the book that I ordered. One thing I loved about my 8x8 book is that every photo had, in a really light gray above it, a date. So I'll show pictures of as much as I can of all the details that I'm sharing here in the show notes, in the blog post show notes. You can go to fearlessandframed.com/intentional documentary podcast to look for this one. And I liked that it had dates in there, because then I could look back and know, okay, this was then. The 6x6, it didn't have any of the dates in there. But when I looked at just what I preferred in the size versus the dates, I would rather have the size. You might be able to put dates in there. I have no idea. I'm not an expert in Chatbooks or Artifact Uprising. I just know from my own experiences, of course. And then the other thing to know about the Chatbooks is that you can order these in a hardcover. I haven't yet, but I think that's a really cool feature. And they've also got some really cool covers as well. I don't know what else there is to say on the topic. You're probably wondering about pricing, and I'll let you figure that one out on your own, only because there's not a set number, and the number might change anyway, so I don't want to quote something and then have it be wrong later. So just check out Artifact Uprising or Chatbooks. I love both of them. They have websites, and you can download their apps for free in whatever download app you have. Obviously, the App Store if you're on iPhone. That's the only one that I know. And if you have any other lingering questions, just reach out and ask. But for now, I want to move on and tell you about 12 different ideas that you can put inside of these books that you may not have thought of, that can make these more like a visual journal beyond, I don't want to say just, but just only the life experiences that you are having. So we're going to get more detail and object oriented here for the sake of your own preservation project. I don't know about you, but I've got 2 kids in school. One of them's not even in school yet. He's actually at a daycare, an early education childhood center. And the amount of papers that my kids bring home from school is just insane. And I don't want to save everything. And then layer that in when you've got a really creative daughter who's constantly making pictures, letters, this, that, and the other thing. It's so much stuff. I could fill a house with papers, but I don't, because instead, number 1 on my list is artwork. If there's something that touches your heart, but yet you don't necessarily want to keep the paper itself, and I know you know how it feels. It almost feels wrong. It breaks your heart to throw a piece of their creations in the trash can. Snap a photo of it. Put it in your phone book. Well, your phone photo book. You know what I mean. The second thing is notes from the teachers. So maybe you don't get these as often as I do, but my daughter has really great days, and then she has days where sometimes she just doesn't really want to participate. I am scared to see what's going to happen with my son, because my daughter is the cool, content, cooperative one more than he is. So this will be interesting. But anyway, the good and the bad. We've also, like, her first day of school at this new school, which was in February, middle of the year, we got a note from the teacher that said that she had a really great day and blah, blah, blah. And then the background of that image, that Post-it, was stuck to a piece of math work that she did. So that was really kind of fun to see in the background. So this is kind of like, you could also include schoolwork in here too. But it's just little timestamps that I think are really fun to have. I mean, they're a part of your journey, so save those. The next thing is report cards or progress reports. And you could photograph the entire thing, and maybe that's kind of cool. But what I want to do next time, I actually haven't done this one yet, but it came to mind when I wrote down number 2, is, you know how on the progress reports or report cards, there's a comments box? The teacher will always mention what your kid needs to work on, but I think almost always they highlight something that they're doing really well in. I want to highlight that for my kids so that when they're looking through these books, they see all these like positive notes about themselves. So that's another thing. Speaking of notes, number 4, your kids' notes, what they're writing. So Levi, my little guy, he's not really writing yet, but Kendall, it just flows out of her all the time. She's a lot like me in that aspect. So in my last chapbook, I have a few different things. Like, she colored some hearts and said, "I love you" on a little Post-it note, and she stuck it on the coffee pot so that her dad would see it when he came in from work and made us coffee in the morning. He works nights. She colored all over a Ziploc baggie when she surprised him by making his lunch for work. She made him a sandwich. That's actually the cover of one of my chapbooks. She wrote a note about her brother one day and how she had such a great day with him. She wrote about her family on this paper one day, and it was a really sweet message. So I love photographing those and putting them in these books. Number 5, if you celebrate Christmas, you could document their Christmas list or their letter to Santa or whatever else you celebrate. Maybe it's something that you do in your religion or another part of your life. Maybe it's a prayer list, Bible verses that they write out that they love, like anything that they are putting on paper. Watch for an opportunity to document that. Number 6, and you might not have thought of this one, a letter from Santa. I mean, obviously, you might not celebrate that, but in our house, we celebrate Christmas, and Santa leaves a letter for the kids on his empty cookie plate, and then we do not practice the elf on the shelf thing. I don't have the patience for that. But every Christmas Eve, one of Santa's sneaky elves visits our house and drops off new PJs and either a book or a DVD, like some Christmas movie usually. So it's all very sneaky. And that elf writes them a note and tells them, listen, you need to get to brushing your teeth or whatever it is. So little things like that, I like to document, not necessarily for the kids, even though, sure, they'll look back on it and maybe they'll think, wow, that was a really great memory. But I do it for me because for all the days where I feel like I'm a crappy mom, I can look at these and see all the times where we've put a lot of effort in too, and it just helps balance that mindset out. So think tooth fairy notes, anything like that. Maybe you sneak a note into your husband's lunchbox for work or your wife's. Document that for yourself, so that way you can just see the effort that you're putting in, and those little reminders, they tend to remind me to want to do more of things like that, you know? Moving on. Number 7, mail, whether it's incoming or outgoing mail. If your kid or yourself has received something, I have a pen pal. That's fun to sometimes document the things that she has sent me. And then also outgoing mail, like Mother's Day, Dave and I made our own Mother's Day cards for our moms. We sat down, we colored together. It was a lot of fun. I haven't colored in years in that way. I've colored with the kids, but making something like that for somebody else that was not for my child, I can't even tell you the last time I did that. So I snapped a picture of that just to remember for myself. Number 8, think about the signs and names of places, something that signals to whoever's looking at these photos later, which could be very well be yourself. I mean, I can't remember what I had for dinner 2 nights ago, let alone try to remember spaces and things from probably 50 years ago. These are a really great way, if you're not printing a book with captions, to tell a little bit more of the story. I know that sounds cliche, tell more of the story, but to literally tell more about, okay, this was at this place. Now I know. So in this last chapbook, we just stumbled upon this roadside park, which I thought was just going to be some picnic tables in the woods where we had a picnic. And it turned out to be this amazing place that, I kid you not, made me feel like a kid again. We ended up going back and I brought my DSLR. But the first time we visited was with my in-laws and we had a picnic. And so I snapped a picture of the sign of the name of the park so that later on, whether it's myself or somebody else that's looking at this book, you know where these pictures had taken place. You could get back to that place because you know where it's at. The next thing is FaceTime screenshots. Did you know that when you're FaceTiming with someone, you can make a screenshot and it will record that? So that's really fun we live apart from our families now, so I can make a picture of one of my kids on the phone on FaceTime with a grandparent or with my sister, their aunt. Last August, when Dave and I lived apart for a little bit during this moving transition, when he had started his new job and I was still at our house, and so we FaceTimed pretty much every day, and he was laying in bed and I was on FaceTime, walking around the house or whatever, and snapped a picture of that. We were just being silly, and it's just a really fun picture to have that's like symbolic to that time in our life. The next thing is text messages. You can screenshot a text message that you want to save, print that in a book. The next thing, recipe favorites. I mean, really, this could be a whole book. And a lot of websites, they have a printable recipe card. So you're not doing anything wrong because, I mean, how often, at least I don't really print recipes from the internet anymore because I look them up on my iPad or on my phone, and then I make a screenshot and I look at that when I'm cooking. And then I go weeks and weeks, maybe even months before making that recipe again. And then my phone is so full of photos that I don't want to go back and figure out where that recipe is in my phone. I go back to the website, I Google whatever the recipe was, or I go on my Pinterest to find the recipe. I pull it back up and make a new screenshot so that it's right in the front of my phone. So logically, wouldn't it make sense to just organize these if I need to have them in that kind of a view to either be, I mean, you could create your own one book of these, like a little one-off book of just recipes, or put them in the mix with everything else. Again, I mean, these are for personal use, obviously. The next thing, I messed up my numbering on here. I wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. What the heck? Anyway, the next thing, number whatever, I'll have a list of these that's organized and beautiful in the show notes, of course. But the next thing is business milestones. So in my last chatbook, I have a screenshot. Well, it's not even a screenshot. I actually made a picture of my computer screen with my phone when I was uploading in the first intentional documentary podcast information to iTunes. So it's just like a really cool way to track like some milestones in your business as well. And that ties into the next thing, which is kind words and testimonials. So in this last chatbook, I also have a couple of Instagram messages that were really, really sweet from people that just talked about how I helped them in one way or another. And those are so wonderful just to have at your hand to look at, just to help you keep your head in the game and reaffirm that you're doing something that matters. And then the last thing that I have on here that yet again I had in this last chatbook is either a store or a restaurant storefront. I mean, we so often go out to eat and we snap a picture of that yummy drink or that really awesome plate of food. But then do you know where it was actually from? So for me, I have a photo of the restaurant front of a restaurant in downtown Greenville that Dave and I absolutely love. It's called Cantina 76. They serve the most amazing tacos. So I have a picture of that place. I had actually made a picture of that place to show him, hey, I want to check this place out. And then as it turns out, that is the most visited restaurant that we've been to so far in the city. All right, my friend, I've made a checklist for you of all of those things just to help jog your memory while you're getting started in this. You can go to fearlessandframed.com/016 and get it there inside of the show notes. Or if you don't want the checklist, but you just want to kind of review what we just talked about, you can go there, see that there. Or you can also text the number 44222 with the phrase 016 treat, and I can email you that checklist quick and simple that way. Talk to you soon. Hope this was helpful. Bye. Thank you for listening. If you've got a quick sec, leave a review. Utilize that space to let me know what spoke to you out of today's episode, what questions were sparked from you. Every single time that I hear from you, you spark ideas in me that I put right back into the podcast for you. So it's win-win, right? You can always hit me up over on Instagram at fearlessandframed is my handle. And as always, you can go to fearlessandframed.com/intentional documentary podcast for this episode's show notes and any mini mags and past show notes. All the goodness is over there. And until next time, what are you going to preserve next? Talk to you soon.